David Dunbar Buick invented a process to anneal porcelain to steel and revolutionized the bathtub industry. And then he went on to make cars. Buick's company had started building stationary and marine engines as early as 1899 and entered the automobile business in 1904. The first car, the Model B, used a patented valve-in-head, horizontally opposed twin, being the first overhead valve-engined production car, something Buick would continue to be known for some time. Only 37 cars were produced the first year, but William Durant was brought in, both as an investor and a promoter, and second-year sales increased to a respectable for the time 750, far short of the orders on hand. Not surprisingly, sales climbed rapidly from there. With its success, Durant used it as the basis to form General Motors and purchased Oldsmobile, Cadillac, and Oakland in 1908, and soon several other companies as well. New models were quick to follow, and by the turn of the decade, sales were over 30,000, second only to Ford. Buick upgraded to a 4-cylinder in 1910 and a 6-cylinder in 1911. The 6 started at just under $2,000 its first year and climbed quickly as it became one of the leading prestige brands in Asia, being the choice of the Emperor of China. Charles Nash had been brought in to oversee Buick production, but would soon move on to create Nash Motors from the Rambler brand. But before leaving, he would bring in Walter Chrysler, who turned Buick into one of the most profitable companies in America. And in spite of its premium pricing, it remained GM's best-selling brand until Chevrolet became part of GM in 1918. By this time, bodies were being built by Fisher, and platforms were shared with Oldsmobile. But Buick had well established itself as the brand to beat in the entry-level luxury field, becoming known as the doctor's car. In 1929, Alfred Sloan revived the Marquette name from another discontinued GM purchase brand as a new, smaller companion to Buick. But GM quickly decided even a less expensive flathead Buick wasn't a good bet in the face of the Depression, in spite of promising first-year sales, especially when those sales were being taken from other GM models. For 1931, Buick upgraded to a Fireball or Dynaflash overhead valve straight 8 that would carry Buick into the 1950s. And starting in 1932, GM combined Buick development with Oldsmobile and Pontiac to share expenses as BOP or BOP. And in spite of some early decade image issues, Buick remained a top 10 seller through the Depression and continued to outsell many less expensive brands. And Buick recovery was quicker than most, boosted by the updated styling of 1936, America's first dream machine concept car, the Y-Job, in 1938, and the 1939 Indy Pace car. During World War II, car production stopped, and Buick made Hellcat tanks and Douglas aircraft engines. Car production resumed in 1946, and Ventaports arrived for 1949. Fender vents that would become a Buick trademark for decades to come. The straight 8 would be replaced by a Fireball overhead valve nailhead V8 for 1953 with the introduction of the Skylark. Overall sales would regularly climb into the top 3 while still being considered a premium brand. 1961 saw the introduction of Buick's legendary Fireball V6 with the new Compact Special and Skylark. Then Buick got the Riviera in 1963 to compete with the Ford Thunderbird after Cadillac passed on it, which was their loss as it quickly became an icon. Soon small cars were showing up in Buick dealerships in the form of Opels from Germany, starting with the Cadet and soon expanding to the GT and the Manta. Following the lead of other GM divisions, Buick entered the muscle car market in mid-1965 with the Grand Sport by dropping a 325 horsepower, 401 cubic inch V8 into the mid-size Skylark, creating the first luxury muscle car. a concept that would peak in 1970 with the GSX Stage 1. Its relatively lightweight 360 horsepower, 455 cubic inch V8 produced a stump-pulling 510 pound-feet of torque and moved the car to 60 in less than 6 seconds and a mid-14-second quarter mile. Like most American brands, Buick would see downsizing and record sales in the late 70s, and it would also see more sharing of engines and models with other GM divisions. For 1976, the Buick Opal would become an Isuzu Gemini, and by this point, Buick's V6 was up to 3.8 liters, and in 1978 gained a turbo, starting a new era for Buick and GM. An era that would see a move to front-wheel drive, starting with the 1979 Riviera for Buick, followed by the 1980 Skylark, a car that was initially well received, being Car of the Year, but would soon be setting recall records and damaging the company's reputation. But the turbocharged V6 Regal T-Type would evolve into the Grand National, yet another iconic luxury muscle car. They also made an attempt at a luxury sports car with the 1988 Rietta, but a more expensive two-seat version of the Riviera was perhaps doomed to fail from the start. For many, Buick's image was still that of big old-school rear-wheel drive luxury barges, but the last of those would be the 1996 Roadmaster. In spite of its reputation, or perhaps because of it, it would regularly be America's leading brand in customer satisfaction. In 2005, Buick was partnered with GMC in order to give dealers a full line of cars, trucks, and SUVs. The Fireball V6 would reach the end of its 47-year life in 2008, putting an end to Buick's 105 years of overhead valve engines. Since that time, Buick has begun to sell to a younger demographic for the first time in decades, while it has remained the leader in the near-luxury field in both sales and customer satisfaction, with its primary competitors being Chrysler and Acura. Buick is now nearly 120 years old and has remained a top seller throughout its history. But today, 80% of new Buicks are sold in Asia, with its U.S. lineup only consisting of smaller SUVs, which begs the question of where and if it will find its place in the future. As always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. Thanks.